And we're good. We're live. So,
Hi,
hello.
guys.
Hey, everyone. So, if you're new to the True You Project, I'm Kendra.
I'm
And
Liberty.
that's Liv. And she's in Tennessee, and I'm in Wales, which is very fun. And Wales is like, without the H, it's not an animal. It's just Wales. I just had to put that in there because some people don't know. And like, it's like having like spinach in your teeth. Like, you want someone to tell you. Do you know
That's
what I mean?
true.
Yeah.
I do always want somebody to tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just FYI. Okay. That's not what we're here to talk about, but just random facts. So now
No.
you know. So this is part of a series that we're doing of just kind of real conversations about topics that are really integral to our lives and are really integral to the True You Project. And so today we thought we would jam about letting go, which is always fun.
And always challenging. And it's something that I think that we don't grow out of. I've just recently started yoga training, and one of the books that we have to read for that is kind of honing in on this idea of right when you think you've got it is when your ego's in charge. Right when you think you've got it is exactly when you need to let go.
Ouch.
And I don't know. I'm like, oh, but I thought that was the whole purpose of learning. And it is, but then that next level takes you to the next level of transformation where you're, more yourself and more in line with who you were created to be and all that stuff. So that's just what's coming to me as you just introduced it. I was like, oh, I read about this last night doing my homework.
Yeah.
So
do you know that really hits home for me because I think I'm starting to notice when those moments are like, because what I'm noticing is when I feel like shit's hitting the fan and I don't have the answers, then I'm totally doing my yoga and my meditation and my journaling and the prayer. It's like, all hands on deck with resources. And then as soon as one thing goes fine, I'm like, oh, cool.
Okay, I don't need that anymore.
Yeah. And I forget. And I'm like, oh no, wait a second. The whole point is to like still be in relationship with that part of yourself and with your higher power when things are going well, right? Like not just to like be the emergency SOS.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. But that's an interesting thing. Like letting go can go both ways, right? You can actually let go of stuff. It's amazing how easy it is to let go of something that's good for you when it feels like, oh, I got this. I had never thought about that other flip side of letting go, because we talk a lot about letting go of things, letting go of control, surrendering, all of those kind of ideas. But I don't know that we've ever talked about kind of the way where it doesn't work.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like the need then for consistency.
Yeah. And resilience to like go, okay, it's going well. And I want to practice like gratitude right now. And I want to dial into that power.
Yeah. I'm going to lean in more. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I do the same thing.
Okay. All right. Good.
Just saying.
You're watching this and you're with us. Can you just let us know?
Just go ahead and give a like or something.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like that. Okay. So I had chills when you said that because what I'm connecting that to was this predicament that I wanted to bring up anyway. But I feel like we've just touched upon that, right? So, okay, I'll give the scenario and then we can tie it together. So
break it down.
So I'm giving a talk on Sunday back at my alma mater with the track team, the women's cross country and track team, and to share a bit of my experience while I was there and how that whole time there was also my experience of an eating disorder and what I kind of learned from that, and how like in that context, kind of what I wish I knew then, right? Like about failure and letting yourself fail and letting go and all that. But I realized as I was starting to prepare, I'm like, okay, these girls, like these women, they like every day when they show up, you don't show up to practice to lose, right? Like you don't join a team to be the worst. You join to be the best. Like that's like the whole point. And I suppose that's like metaphorically kind of what life is. Like there's probably not many things in life that we just kind of go around and think, I think I want to be really crap at this. But like that environment just feels like hypersensitive to winning and losing because it's clear cut. It's even different than like pass fail kind of thing. Because if you fail a test, you pass the next one, it's no big deal. So anyway, I'm like, crap, like how do I walk in there and talk about letting go when the whole reason why they're there is to win?
Right.
But
how do you?
I don't know. I don't know the answer yet, which is why we're going to talk about this now. But I feel like what you've just said there, Liv, and what we just touched upon is part of the answer of like, when things are going well, you still be consistent. And that happens when you're training.
Right.
Right. Like if you're training in a sport, you don't think like, oh, I had a good race. Like, I mean, maybe you take the foot off the pedal a little bit, but in general, you're still looking to the next race. So the next day you're still going for your long run, and then you're still having your workout on Monday, and you're still consistently in the process, because that one win isn't like the end all and be all. There's always something more. And so I feel like it's that balance of like the consistent action is still there in the process of letting go. I feel like feels like a doorway. I don't know what's coming up.
Yeah. What I'm thinking about is the whole idea of external validation as a win. Like I get stuck in this trap a lot where I'm like, I'm going to do this to get this result. And so I get focused on the result rather than the awesome things that I am doing to go there. Right. And so I do this a lot in my coaching. We break down little bitty things where I'm like, did you celebrate that? Did you focus on that thing that you changed your story there? That was doing something different. And it's always really small stuff. But when I'm focused on that win, we'll just use win because that's what we're talking about. Some people will use the word outcome. When I'm focused on that outcome, I'm missing me in the process a lot of times. That's when I'm disconnected. That's when I go into what I call kind of robot mode. Like I'm only doing this thing to get this result rather than celebrating that I'm doing something really cool, and I'm committing to myself that I'm going to do this training, whatever the training is. Right now for me, it's yoga training. For the ladies that you're talking to on Sunday, it's going to be running, right? I mean, their parents do this every day where they're like, how am I going to do it with little kids, right? And stay present and engaged. So I think that one thing, like kind of what we were talking about before, which is like leaning in more to the consistent practices, is where we actually find the win. Right? Because if I'm disconnected from my practices, if I'm disconnected from how I'm practicing, I'm not going to really be even connected to the win. It's like that connection between joy and sadness, right? If you cap your sadness, you're necessarily capping your joy.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be a correlation here too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's just what's coming as I'm talking.
As you're saying that, I'm remembering myself like at certain moments of practice, like where there was no celebration for me. Actually, no, two things are coming to mind. So when I remember showing up to practice, like we'd have set days of like workouts, right? So you kind of know when the hard part was coming, and you could like know when the pain is coming. Right?
Yeah. Brace yourself.
Yeah. And I remember like for the whole day, it was just like, oh my God, I got to get through practice. Right? Like it's just this idea of like, let me get to the end. Like you said, the outcome. Let me get to the end, and then I can breathe and I can chill and that kind of thing. And then on the flip side, there were other days where like, and for the most part, like for me anyway, like those practices, like I know maybe 50-50, they went well, what they didn't, I don't know. But I remember some days where I could walk away celebrating that, but again, it was celebrating the outcome of the practice, or walking away feeling like shit because my times during the time run or the repeats or whatever weren't where I wanted them to be. And so the outcome of that was very much defining and predicting my own emotional like regulation and how I saw myself. So again, I was even in the process, there were outcomes that I was trying to anchor myself to, as opposed to walking away and saying, you know what? I just freaking ran 3 to 5 miles with my VO2 max at 80, or do you know what I mean? Like just like kind of breaking it, like you're saying, and like that's neither good nor bad. Like that's like that is still pretty freaking cool, you know? Like whatever the time was, and just be like, you did that. You got your body from A to B that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and with gratitude for what I've just did and that I showed up. And that part wasn't there for sure.
Yeah. No, as you're talking about that, I have said so many times in different contexts that I lived the first half of my life as a destination junkie. So I was
awesome.
always going, right? Like, and I think that's what we're talking about is the way to, I guess the way back to you is to really embrace this idea that presence is greater than performance. And so the showing up, like I've said this to my sister and my sister and I said this back and forth all the time when we don't feel like doing something. We're like, you can go and just sit there. We mostly talk about yoga. You're like, just going to the class and sitting on your mat is a win because you're doing something different. You're getting out of the spinning thoughts. You're getting out of whatever the anxiety or whatever it is. You're breaking the cycle. And it's amazing. And hardly anybody celebrates the fact that just doing that, like just showing up for practice, that is the win. It's not the time. It's not the, whatever the stats. It's the showing up, because that's where you're present. And then that gets all tangled up with the destination of, I want to win. I have to be the best. I want to be the star or whatever. And that's where the performance gets tangled up in there. And then it's like, if I don't perform well, then what about my presence? What does it say about my presence? And I don't know how it kind of overshadows it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, so two things come into mind there. Like, one is like, okay, you can't show up to a race and sit on your ass. Like, it doesn't work.
True.
You're not going to win. Right?
Yeah,
like,
it's not yoga.
Yeah. I just taught an embodied class, and a similar thing happened. One of the girls, she was there and she just didn't have the energy to move and to dance, but she was loving it. I was so proud of her. She just sat and she drummed on the floor and she was like moving.
Oh, that's awesome.
But she was totally owning where she was at. Mm-hmm. and doing it, right? And she got what she needed from it. And so I'm aware that there's situations where that concept works really well, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's something like showing up to a race or business related, or there's probably like a million other scenarios we could think of where like showing up and sitting, it needs more than that. And so like, this is where I feel like my brain is a little bit like confused, because like, so that thing I read this morning, right, from the Ann Wilson
mm-hmm.
thing, right? So Liv and I miraculously each had our own copy of these books.
Yeah. They just arrived, and then one day we happened to be talking and we realized we were reading the same devotional.
Yeah, we were like, oh, hello. And keep in mind, remember, she's in Tennessee and I'm in Wales. Like, just
I bought mine at Goodwill, and she got yours was given to you, right?
Yeah. So anyway, like, these things find you. This is the wrong. No, what's today? The 16th. Oh yeah. So she was saying like, living a life of faith, which is what we're talking about: trust, letting go, faith, mm-hmm. floating down the river. It's not passive or lazy. It's doing the best we can and then letting go. And so I feel like, I feel like there's that thing of like, you still show up and you still take the action, but you do it with the trust and the faith that like everything that you've done so far is giving you exactly what you need for that race. Metaphorically speaking, you're not in front of you, right? It's that whole like my presence is enough. I've done enough, and I am enough for today,
right?
And I think that part was hugely missing for me.
Yeah, because I always felt like I had to perform. I mean, that was my destination, was to do what everybody else expected rather than to show up and be me and to trust that I had done enough. Right? Like, my practice times might not have been great, or they might not have looked like everybody else's, but they were mine. And just owning that, like, that's the presence piece that was missing. Right? It just never occurred to me that I could just be enough by showing up, doing my work, like leaning into the work from the practice, whatever the practice was.
Yeah. And
letting that be enough.
Like, so what helps you like practically speaking, and I know some of this stuff is a bit like woolly, isn't it? Because it's just sort of like your
but
state of
actionable
being. But
stuff about
yeah,
it.
like what helps you, and like in like real world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one of the things that's really helping is, and this is going to sound like a shameless plug, but I use it so regularly. It's our grounding, our daily grounding process with the 7 questions and the oil. And to be honest, the oil is in my art room, and I usually write in another room, so I don't always have the oil when I'm writing, but just those questions connect me to me so that I get to figure out what my next step is. Because when I'm trapped in performance destination land, I lose track of what I need to lean into, whether that's, processing with a friend or resting or pressing in more, right? Like making another phone call and preparing for the next meeting or doing homework or whatever. And so that process, I've been using it, I think, what's today, January 16th? I think I'm on day 15. I'm on 15 out of 16 now.
Okay, I stopped like last week.
I'm on a roll because it's working.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing what works, but that's something that really works, is figuring out, like, kind of stilling myself and just reconnecting to me, which means that I am not worried about how I guess it's unplugging myself from that needing to have that outcome.
Yeah.
Rather, it's plugging into what I need for me.
So let me ask you this, right? So what's your equivalent of the starting line of your life right now? Like, so you're not running 5Ks like on a regular basis.
Okay. The starting line of my, okay. So it's yoga training.
Okay.
Right. I'm learning how to,
okay.
How to do it.
So you ground, and so here's like, you can get it on our website, and like, if you can't find it, let us know. We can get you it. But it's basically asking you to say, what's my expectation? How am I comparing myself? Where's my fear? What's the impact? What's my truth? What's my next right move? That's like the basic process of it. So you grab, you do that. How does that translate into, now you're at the starting line for yoga training. You take your first step. What happens next?
Right now, I'll be very vulnerable and present. Like right now, it is leaning into that I'm at the right place at the right time, and I don't have anything to be afraid of. Right? Like I'm ready for this. It's leaning into the fact that all of the training, all of the yoga I've practiced, all of the recovery, the work that I've done, it was for this. It feels like, and that part is letting go, because that means I have to trust that I'm in the right place for me right now. I have everything I need to do this. Right? Yes, I am learning more stuff, but I have what it takes to learn that.
You have your internal resources. And so whether that's like you said, your emotional capacity, like the spiritual work you've done for yourself, the healing you've done, your physical self, you're putting all of that together. Yeah.
It's like letting go. I think what I have to let go of, or what I'm conscious that I am trying to let go of, like where my work is right now, is I'm letting go of those old stories that are like, this isn't going to change anything. You're not going to really do anything with this. Like, all of the negative inner critic kind of stuff. I don't
know if this came up for you, but this did when I went on the Embody training. I'm like, am I ever going to really teach a class? Like, will I ever pull that off? Will people actually come? Will they pay? Will I actually make my ROI on their financial investment?
Right. Yes, absolutely. I'm wondering that. But you know what I'm recognizing? I'm reading several books at the same time for this training, and one of the books is so good. And one of the things that it talks about is practicing what you're learning is success. So it doesn't matter, and that's what I'm actually trying to do. I'm actually trying to put that practice into practice. So like for the last week, my boys have gotten out the yoga mats, and I'm practicing leading them through a flow. And it's not beautiful, and it's not perfect because they don't know all the poses, and they haven't done a lot of breath work. And so it's real choppy, but we're just leaning in, and I'm doing it. Yeah. And that part feels like a success because it feels connected. And that's something that I just crave so much, is connection with myself and with other people. So it's facilitating that. I don't know about the money yet, but that's a nice ROI.
It'll come. It'll totally come.
Yeah, it'll come.
But do you know what? You know what that's like throwing me back to is like practicing what you're learning. And so I'm just keep going back to this context of like running a 5K, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not learning anything while I'm running that 5K. Was the first thought that came to mind, and then I realized, oh, but wait a second. That's part of the letting go thing too. Like it's in there because if you're okay, let's just contrast like letting go, like you said, it's part of it is being present in the process, and not letting go is like holding on to the outcome. So if you're running the 5K and you're only there for the moment that you step across the finish line, and you totally ignore the first 18 minutes or whatever that it takes to get you there, then you're not learning anything, right? But if you're going into that from step one, you're tracking and you're present to how am I feeling? Where's my head going? What's my body doing? What's my body feeling? And you're able to respond to yourself and everything around you. That means you have data at the end to go back and say, do you know what? When we got to this point, I totally freaked out and I lost it. And so what can I do differently next time? So that I don't freak out at that point? Or do you know, at this point, I felt so good. I was flying high. Like I was so in the flow. I could have kept going for like another, like for a marathon, right? Like then you're like, okay, well, what was fueling me there? And so that's what you're taking. That's what fuels your success, because you're present the whole time. So you know what doesn't work for you.
Yeah. And that's the leaning in, right? Like that's leaning in a little bit more when things are going well, right? Like that goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, how when life's, hell in a handbasket, you're like, I've got to pray, I've got to meditate, I've got to yoga, I've got to do all my practices, and then things start getting better and you let go. But what if in the run, right? So you're running and you're chugging along, and I've had both experiences as a runner. Right. I've had those runs where I was like literally running through ankle deep water the entire time. I felt like I was fighting just to keep going. And then I've had the runs where I was like on angel wings, apparently, no problem. Nothing. It was amazing. And so being present to both. Yeah. And I mean, both of those were a gift, right? If I have to say it now in retrospect, like, oh, I was getting messages about both things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the other thing is like the judging it afterwards, cause I'm sure I did notice what was going on. I'm sure I probably overanalyzed, and I probably overanalyzed to like see what was not working more than what was working. And like, I'm, these days, if I go for a run, a lot of it is like huffing and puffing the whole time. I'm like slightly out of shape. But what I've learned now is not to judge the outcome of it, right? Like, so that afterwards it's accepting what it is for what it is, and whether it's the performance I wanted or the performance I didn't want, but it's like being okay with that. So it's almost like having to be okay with that before you take that first step across the line, but also knowing that while you're going through the process and running the race, like you're fully present and you're giving it your all.
Yeah. And I think that's the reframe, or that's the creating the new story. We talk about that so much of the True You journey. Like, how are you going to create a new story? Not just how, but I am creating a new story. Like we say it in a really powerful, affirming way. I am creating a new story.
Yes.
So standing at a starting line and creating the new story of committing to being present to yourself, whether that includes pain or pleasure or a combination or a million other things, leaning into that presence is more important than the win or the lose, right? Either way.
Yeah. And I was just thinking
I just wish I'd known this like a million years ago. Yeah. So yeah. I hope this sinks in. It's so important.
So let's see. I know we've only got like 5 minutes or so left. I'm trying to think if I want to ask a question.
What about you? What about your practice? Well, you asked practically speaking, you asked me like the practically speaking question. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, practically speaking, what does it look like for you to stay present?
So I'd say my starting line at the moment is business related. And so me staying present is being super connected to what I'm feeling. And I've learned to use my body to help me understand that better too. Like, so this is like takes practice, but like a practical thing. So like really like feeling like I'm tight in my shoulders. I'm standing this way. I'm standing this way. Or like,
oh yeah.
Right. Like, or even like if I'm using the mouse for too long, or I'm using it on the laptop as opposed to like a actual mouse, it's like my wrists start hurting. And I know if my wrist is hurting and I'm doing for something, I'm going to be agitated and irritated, and it's going to spin out from there. Right. So it's like little things like that. But then like today I'm just thinking of an example of like, we had an inquiry for some fish. Right. And so I was like, okay, I was about to email her back. And then I thought, you know what? Instead of emailing her these questions, I could pick up the phone and I could ask her these questions. And I thought, you know, I'm going to do that because that's more comfortable for me. And I might sound like an idiot, like I don't know what I'm talking about if she asked me a question that I don't know the answer to, but I'd rather be present to me knowing that my next right move is to have a conversation as opposed to go back and forth with email. And so
that's brilliant.
So, you know, we don't know what the outcome of that is, right? But it's just sort of those little things of recognizing, like, I'd rather just do this because this feels more me. And then because I'm doing it more me, there's probably going to be a greater connection. And in the context of business, like that's probably going to go further, right? So now we had a conversation. We had a side conversation about something else that wasn't even on the agenda, right? Like,
yeah. I love that. We talked about that last week about how figuring out what your next right move is actually figuring out the way you would do it, right? Whatever it is. So you're at the starting line of whatever it is, the race, the business conversation, the relationship, whatever. You're standing at the starting line. What is my way to do it? Because if I run whatever race it is my way, then the win and the lose is not the biggest deal.
No.
Right? Like that's not the thing that, yes, I'm going to celebrate there. And yes, I hope it's a big celebration. But the biggest deal is that I got to do it my way. Not in like an oppositional kind of thing. I'm not talking about that, but to do it your way, like is to do it with your most authentic self at the surface.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about more me. I'm going to do it with more me. So yeah. I love that.
I feel like there's so much more we could talk about this, and unfortunately we don't have time.
Yeah.
So we're going to
maybe we can do it to be continued.
Yeah. And trust that this is giving you what you need. And but definitely TBC. And actually, like, what we'd love to hear from you if you're listening to this, like if there's a specific thing that you want to lean into more, let us know, because we'll jam on that. Because the first question that comes to mind is like then the question becomes not how do I let go, it's how do I be more me.
But letting go of that outcome makes room. If you let go of something, think about it, if you clean out your closet, then you have room for new cute stuff. Same idea, same concept, but just on the inside. So
cool.
Awesome. All right, well, y'all know where to get in touch with us, thetrueyouproject.com, and let us know where this fit and where we can support you.
Yeah, definitely. All right, lots of love, guys.
Bye.